Good afternoon. My name is Vince Fitzpatrick. I'm the curator of the H.L. Mencken Collection here at the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore. Mencken had a long and friendly relationship with the Enoch Pratt Free Library. He began to use the old library branch number 2 at Hollins and Calhoun Streets when he was a child. And he used the Enoch Pratt Free Library building for research throughout his years as a professional writer. And he wrote about the library on a number of occasions in the Baltimore Evening Sun and other publications and praised the library very highly. He had a tremendous respect for the institution and its staff. Mencken died on January 29, 1956, and the original Mencken Room opened upstairs on April 17, 1956. And Alistair Cook spoke at the opening of the original Mencken Room, as did Hamilton Owens. And Hamilton Owens was Mencken's editor on the Baltimore Evening Sun. Now, the room where we are right now opened on November 8, 2003, and on the inception of this room, Mr. Gwyn Owens spoke, and Mr. Gwyn Owens was the son of Hamilton Owens. The founding curator was Betty Adler, and as a matter of respect for her, I try to keep her presence very much alive in this room. She did a tremendous amount of work as the founding curator. She was the initial bibliographer. She put together a census of his correspondence. And all of us who have worked on Mencken and have written about Mencken are very much in her debt. Mencken always saw himself primarily as a journalist. And we have, as I've mentioned, a thorough record of his contribution to journalism. Probably the most important writing that Mencken did as a journalist was his coverage of the Scopes trial. And the Scopes trial was 85 years ago this month. And that's might well be the most controversial copy that Mencken wrote. Some lionized him as a defender of free speech, and others vilified him as the devil incarnate. So the journalism among the various roles, that's what Mencken always saw himself primarily as a journalist. He was an author of books, and one of the great components of this collection here is that we have all of the books that he wrote in the various editions. So his first book written under his byline was Ventures into Verse in 1903, and as I mentioned before, he passed in 1956, but he had consigned a variety of materials to Time Lock. And what this means is that various books were issued at various intervals after his death. So we have the multiple editions of all the books that Mencken wrote. Mencken was also a magazine editor, and he was also a contributor to magazines. And we have the magazines that he edited, the Smart Set and the American Mercury, and we have in what we call our A sub-collection all of the various manuscripts and published articles that he wrote for the magazines. Mencken was a very prolific correspondent. Now, when Mencken was a younger man, there were 2 posts each day. You had a morning mail and an afternoon mail. And Mencken was very smart because when you're writing, the most difficult time is getting started. And Mencken would use his morning post as a warm-up, and he would answer the correspondence first. Mencken wrote somewhere between, it's a staggering, his productivity as a correspondent. He wrote somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 letters. And he, as a matter of courtesy, he always tried to answer the mail on the same day that it was received. So we have an invaluable collection of correspondence here that runs to thousands and thousands of letters. In terms of the artifacts, I'm very fascinated by the Schottenstein portrait, and let me give a little background on that, if I may. Nicole Schottenstein was a painter who lived in Manhattan, and Mencken sat for this portrait beginning in the spring of 1927. He was approaching his 47th birthday. And this was a period when Mencken was at the height of his powers. He was called during the 1920s the most powerful private citizen in America. And the way the portrait is painted, Mencken's energy almost jumps off the portrait. There's a tremendous amount of energy with Mencken, and in terms of my caption here in the room, I suggest that this type of energy gives so much vitality to the prose. We have here in our archives a very rich photographic collection which takes Mencken from a very young child. I think our earliest photo is Mencken as a baby, and it takes him up to the year of his death. And there were a number of photographs which place him in various different contexts of that rich and varied career. So that rich photographic collection is one of the really strong points of the collection. We have two scrapbooks, and the one is the scrapbook for the Monday articles, which were the most important weekly newspaper column that he did. And right behind that is the scrapbook for the Freelance, which was the most important daily column that he did. So we have many of these items here in this actual room, and some of them are elsewhere in the closed stack area. That typewriter is a very interesting artifact that we have. It was a typewriter that belonged to Mencken, and it's so small it looks almost like a toy. And it's striking to think that some of the best writing in prose nonfiction was ever produced on a typewriter of that size. Now, one thing which is very curious about that typewriter, if you take a close look at it, you can see it. Mencken was a two-finger typist, and he always hit the space bar with his right thumb. And you can see from where the space bar is worn that was Mencken's thumb there. Yes, that piece of furniture was given to Mencken by Alfred A. Knopf, his longtime publisher in New York City. And it's a gift from Mencken. After Mencken had the stroke on November 23rd, 1948, he could no longer read and write. And the final 7 years were very difficult for him. But music was his first love, and he still liked to listen to music. So it was a very important gift because Mencken could play music on the record player, and he could listen to music on the radio. So that contains both the record player and a radio. Mencken is very important today. When I give a tour in this collection, one of the things that I'll mention is that many of the people who were Mencken's contemporaries are not remembered as he is now. And that's a question I frequently get asked. Why does Mencken continue to matter now, as you say? Why does he continue to be so relevant? Why does he continue to be talked about to the degree that he is? I think the first thing is Mencken's huge ability as a stylist. The writing continues to jump off the page and continues to regale people. This is a permanent exhibit on Mencken's wife. She passed on May 31st, 1935. She was a very young lady. And Mencken wrote a very poignant diary entry in May 31st, 1940, the 5th anniversary of her death. If I may, to read from the exhibit copy. Thinking of her, I can well understand the great human yearning that makes for a belief in immortality, but I do not believe in it, and neither did she. We have parted forever, though my ashes will soon be mingling with hers. I'll have her in mind until thought and memory adjourn, but that is all. Whether or not it is better to do so, I do not know, but there is the fact as I see it. We were happy together, but all beautiful things must end. So he was a tremendous stylist. Many people have tried to write like Mencken, and it's not possible to do it simply because the writing was unique. This collection is accessible by appointment, and it's open to the public one day a year on Mencken Day. And Mencken Day is always held on the Saturday closest to Mencken's birthday, which was September 12th, 1880. Now, there are a variety of programs that day. The Mencken Society, which has done very much to keep Mencken's flame alive, meets in the morning, and they always have a speaker addressing them. And then we have what's called the Mencken Memorial Lecture in the afternoon, and this is delivered in the Wheeler Auditorium. And then this room is open to the public that day, so people will come in and visit the collection. We have a variety of exhibits that day. So I would like to extend the invitation to people to visit that day and participate in the activities.